All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking NFL football, and it's draft season. It's that time, and we're going through any possible scenarios, trades, and anything crazy that can happen in this draft. And I'm joined by my man, the guy who knows more about Roger Goodell than a normal person should. My co-host, Fresh. Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
I'm just waiting for one day to get a chance to sit in that nice, comfy brown chair that he has on draft night in 2020. The one kind of weird thing, it's kind of quiet on the draft front from the NFL perspective the past couple of weeks, so it means something crazy is coming.
Yeah, so let's kind of look at this here. I don't know exactly where we want to start with it. So let me ask you this question here, Fresh. What do you think is the craziest scenario that you could see come out of this draft? Do you think it is a team reaching for one of these quarterbacks? You know, we recorded a couple of days ago our picks between these quarterbacks. Do you think that we're going to see a lot of trades come out of here? What are you seeing as the kind of, I don't even want to say doomsday scenario, but what's the craziest scenario you could see to start off with this draft?
I mean, right off the bat, if I'm the Jaguars, are you truly sold on anyone at the number one spot? You need so much help across the board. I could see them shipping that first overall pick in a doomsday-like scenario to a team desperate for a quarterback like a Malik Willis, who is destined and is fearful that the Lions are going to take him, and they are so in love with Willis that they basically call Trent Baalke and Shad Khan and are like, we're going to give you the world for that first pick. And if I'm the Jaguars, I take it and I run. I'm not exactly sold on Hutchinson as the overall best player in the draft. I think the Jaguars need so much help that if you had an offer for that first overall pick, you take it and you run.
What do you think that would cost the Jaguars, or what would they get out of that? I shouldn't say cost them, but what would they get out of that pick, especially in a draft that is underwhelming, I guess. But we're high on a lot of different position groups, but not a position group that you take one overall. What do you think, Blake? Let's say, for an example, Atlanta. And I don't know if Atlanta's looking to move up into that number one overall pick. But what do you see it taking to make that big of a move up to number one?
Oh, you definitely need multiple first round picks. I think at least 5 draft picks and first and second rounders, this year and next year. You've got to get, since the Falcons only have the 7th overall, the 8th overall, you're going to have to give up the 8th. They're going to have to give up their second round pick, and you're going to have to get a first and a second next year, maybe even a first the year after. It's going to take a lot. And if I'm the Jaguars, you demand, you put your line in the sand because you know you're in control, and you're going to test how desperate that team is for a quarterback and where they're willing to go. That's the one benefit of having that first overall pick is you can play the field, if you will, and use negotiation power and try to see who's willing to ante up. You kind of also hope that you have another team involved that also helps raise the stakes a little bit and keep the bidding war going.
So you made mention to the Lions and a quarterback. Do they do it? Do they honestly reach for a quarterback? Because we got to admit, it's a giant reach. I'd be pissed if I was a Lions fan. If the Lions take a quarterback at 2, if they fall in love with Malik Willis, or if they're going to select Kenny Pickett, I guess if they take Kenny Pickett and he's going to sit behind Jared Goff, I'm not pissed. But if I'm taking Kenny Pickett and he's got to start day one or within the first 4 weeks of the season, I'm not a fan of that. So do you legitimately believe a quarterback's going to, or where do you see a quarterback actually starting to go here in this draft?
I do not see a quarterback going to. I think, that team is built on intensity, and I think they have holes at the offensive line spot that they can fill. They have holes in the defensive backfield. They have holes on defense in general. The way the team is built, they are built with a gritty thing. They are not going to be fancy. They're not going to try to flash in the pan. If they take a quarterback, they take it with the 32nd overall pick. I think you look at where, hey, I can get Sauce Gardner at number 2. I could get Thibodeau. I could get Evan Neal. I could get Aquanu. I can get Kyle Hamilton. the roster depth you could build is there to support Jared Goff. Jared Goff is not the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's not terrible. And considering where the Lions are at, they're not going to the playoffs next year. They're on a Super Bowl team with just a quarterback. They need a full 53 overhaul. That's where you start maximizing where do I build a team around a quarterback where I don't have to rely on the quarterback. Look at the 49ers. I'm going to use an example there where Garoppolo has talent, but he is not a Tom Brady, a Mahomes, a Herbert, a Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, etc. He is a game manager who makes the throws when he has to, uses the play action. But with the year they went to the Super Bowl, they had an amazing defense that kept the game in control and allowed that offense with play action to Kittle, using receivers in motion, using put players in space and running the football for them to win. The Lions, kind of, I think they're going to go with the same mentality of building a defense, putting playmakers around them, and not putting the full brunt of the game on that quarterback's shoulders because you don't have an elite quarterback, and you're not getting one in this draft. So build a core of a whole team that can win because the quarterback can't play defense. The quarterback can't protect the quarterback. Quarterback can't catch a pass. You've got to find guys to do that for him. And if you put it all on a Malik Willis's shoulders, even in year two, that moment might be too big for him. And then you're wasting a year or two, and you're pushing that recovery period of contention farther down the road.
So where does the first quarterback go off the board? Are we looking at Atlanta? Like you may mention to them at number 8. Are we looking at a team like New Orleans at 16? I know you could say the Commanders at 11 could be in the need for a quarterback. Where does that first quarterback go off the table?
We've heard the Panthers have been looking for a quarterback forever. Originally, it was all about Deshaun Watson. They were willing to give up Christian McCaffrey for Deshaun Watson. Obviously, that's not happening now. They have Sam Darnold. They traded for him last year. Is he the answer?
No.
He was benched last year. He's not the answer. Then you come into the question. We have Jimmy G is potentially being traded. I don't think, really, are they truly ready to move on to Trey Lance? I don't think Jimmy G is going anywhere. Baker, there are situations that Deshaun Watson might be suspended for the entire year, or a good portion of it. So what's the point in the rush for the Browns to get rid of Baker? You might as well make him play. Remember, Deshaun Watson's contract this year is only for $1 million. So his cap hit's not that big. They're smelling something down the road. So I don't think Baker's going to be on unless he gets blown away in a trade proposal for the Browns. So you look at the Panthers, that team might need to take quarterback. They might have to decide between Kenny Pickett and Willis. I think the Falcons are more of a desperation situation to take a quarterback because Marcus Mariota is not that guy. He wasn't the guy in Oakland. He was a spot player. He came in a couple trick packages. That was it. He's not the Heisman Trophy winner at Oregon. I think the Falcons are your first true legit team that will be taking a quarterback and being serious on it. The Seahawks will be the second one because Drew Lock is not the guy in Seattle. Geno Smith is not the guy in Seattle. Those are the two teams I would look at as where that quarterback would fall. But you mentioned the Saints, which is very interesting. Those 2 first-round picks, they have a bunch of picks in the overall draft. They have picks next year. Are they the team that talks to the Jets, talks to the Texans, talks to the Giants, talks to the Panthers? It's kind of weird because they need a quarterback potentially. The Panthers and the Falcons need a quarterback. They're all in the division. Are you willing to move up? If you're the Panthers, or the Falcons, are you willing to trade with the division rivals so they can come up and get themselves a quarterback? It's going to be interesting. Really, do you see teams in the division trade with each other, especially when it comes to a quarterback, option in the draft? But I really think the Panthers and Falcons are the first two, Seahawks, and then, Saints from there. So for lack of to make a definite answer, the Falcons are taking a quarterback at 8.
Wow. So if I'm one of these 2 quarterbacks, I don't want anyone to take me before the Saints. The Saints are the first team that if I'm Malik Willis or I'm Kenny Pickett, I don't want to go to Seattle. I don't want to go to Carolina. I don't want to go to Atlanta. You're not built for me and my career. You're going to push me into playing, and I'm not going to have weapons around me. I'm not going to have the ability to be protected. I look at this and I say the first of the good scenarios is New Orleans. New Orleans coming off of, Breeze retiring. They have the weapons. They have Michael Thomas. We'll see what happens with him. Kamara is a phenomenal running back. I absolutely love Alvin Kamara. I think he was the reason, Drew Brees dumping off passes to him in the flat was one of the reasons he had such a long career. So New Orleans is my first place, and I think that's in the best interest of both these quarterbacks. We're talking about only Willis and Pickett here. Maybe it is Matt Corral. Maybe teams really like him. Maybe it is a guy by the name of Carson Strong who has probably the best arm out of these quarterbacks as well. Mason Rudolph is Mason Rudolph. He's a backup. He's a good backup. He's not bad to have on your team, but he ain't a starter.
No.
I'm not gonna roll with him. I personally see the two quarterbacks. If I'm one of them, I'm hoping that I'm not drafted until the later rounds, until 16 and until the Pittsburgh pick right there. So I see that as the quarterback as well right there. I just can't get on board. I've seen so many of these mock drafts with, Detroit taking a quarterback. I'm like, God, I'll be your GM. I'll be your GM, and I'll be smarter than you. If you take a quarterback at 2, you can pay me a lot less than you're paying those guys, and I'll be perfectly happy to go into that draft room and go, guys, we're going to take one of these guys because I'm going to build a team. You need, especially if this isn't a slam dunk, home run pick of a quarterback. If this isn't a Joe Burrow draft, this isn't even – I think if Baker Mayfield was in this draft, he'd still be the best quarterback in this draft.
Well,
So you're telling me
is that Jordan Love is ranked as the best quarterback in the draft. And that just shows you how terrible it is.
Yeah. So I just can't get on board with Detroit taking that second overall pick on a quarterback. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I'm a little bit far-fetched, but it is what it is for me. All right, Fresh. Let's go to a group that we haven't talked about a whole lot. We actually like a lot of these players, a lot of these running backs in this draft. We liked them during the college football season. We talked about them a whole lot. And none of them have a first-round grade. And I know that the running back position has been devalued over the years. I know that it's really kind of dumb to spend a first-round pick on a running back. But there's some good guys. There's some very, very talented players, guys that will have probably a pretty impressive career, probably make a few Pro Bowls here and there. How do you see it, man? Who is the best running back in this draft?
Well, I think you have a lot of value here, and that's the thing where the game has changed. Where we're starting to get away from the bell cow running backs, and we're starting to see teams having 2 and 3 guys get equal touches. Yeah, I think Green Bay's and Baltimore's the world. Even the Dallas Cowboys now with the way they had Pollard and Zeke, where your guys are getting, you're trying to save their bodies, rotating them, keeping them fresh for the year, and that's what you have when it comes to this draft class. You don't have a guy who's going to be the Adrian Peterson of the world, the end-all, be-all Marshawn Lynch. You're going to have guys who are going to come in, situational football, provide rotational depth to your team. Kenneth Walker III last year at Michigan State was an absolute amazing running back. He definitely took a beating, and you could kind of see late in the season he kind of got a little tired. And that's just natural because he was the Michigan State offense. Ran through him, and these play action off of that. Breece Hall was an amazing running back at Iowa State, really showed bursts of speed out of the backfield, thrived in that offense. And he kind of fits a Shanahan-esque offense where you can hit him with screen passes, hit him with dump offs. He can run between tackles. He can run behind and run the zone, blocking scheme. He has that mentality. He's been coaching that through under Matt Campbell at Iowa State. He does fit a power, mentality from that perspective. Another running back, Dameon Pierce from Florida. He was probably the only Gator on that offense, and maybe the only Gator on that entire team, other than Elam, that was worth his salt last year, the entire season from start to finish. There's clamorings. We live in Florida. We made this well documented that the Gator Nation, radio heads all were clamoring why Pierce never got the football. Every single year he'd go out there, he'd be the best running back, never got the ball. I think he has a lot to prove. He showed a pretty good combine, showed a pretty good workout session during the training period. I think he's going to be a surprise pick. And then a player that near and dear to my heart, I think James Cook, his brother's in the NFL already. He showed his skills, a very good pass receiving and third down running back to start off with that will give your offense flexibility. He can run between tackles. If you watch, some Georgia football, he runs through the tackles, but he's definitely lethal in space, in the slot, in the wheel route situation, dump off in a screen pass. He can then take it, and get a big chunk of yards. So you have the 4 of them, I think, are the premier, top of the line of your running backs, and it filters from there. The Buffalo Bills have constantly had running back issues. They might be a team that actually in the first round grabs a running back. They tried with Zach Moss, didn't work. They tried with a couple other guys, didn't work. And you can't have Josh Allen being the leading rusher for your team every single year. He's going to get beat up, and eventually you're going to lose your franchise. You've got to find someone to help balance that offense from a passing perspective with a steady running game. So I think they might be one of those teams that really takes a look at that running back position early and tries to cash in.
So Kenneth Walker III is still my top running back, and I'm going off of the eye test. At the end of the day, I don't care about measurables. I don't care about 40 speeds and stuff like that. I know that they are important, and when I say that, the dude could play. I watched him too many times just rip people up and down the field. And I go back to that Michigan game. Michigan had a good defense this year. They had a really good defense. And Kenneth Walker III just torched them all day long in that comeback. He's probably my top running back. I'm looking at some of these other guys, though. Kyren Williams, I'm intrigued by him out of Notre Dame, especially over the last 2 years. 27 touchdowns in this past year, and then in 2020, which was a COVID year, they've been playing a lot more of ACC talent. I really like him with that. He's kind of interesting with me. You mentioned Breece Hall. Breece Hall just was phenomenal when he was over at Iowa State. The guy who I'm probably the most intrigued with, though, where I think like who out of this running back class could have that come out of nowhere. And to us, this guy didn't come out of nowhere because we talked about him. We talked about him quite a bit. Who do you think it is?
Jerome Ford?
No, not Ford.
Oh.
I do like Ford, though. Tyler Algier. I can't ever say his last name. Algieri. I hope I'm saying that right. BYU.
Yep. Okay.
Converted, he is a converted linebacker. But how many games did we talk about the Cougars, and who did we mention? It was him.
Well, first off, we talked about Cougars a lot on this podcast, but yeah, he was the go-to guy for the BYU offense.
23 touchdowns this past year. 36 touchdowns in the last 2 years. You're looking at a guy with 2,700 yards the last 2 years. He produced, and especially with running back. With me, I want my guy to have a statistical piece coming out of college. I get it, especially wide receivers. Sometimes, when you're running 5 wide, there's only one football to go around. But you're still going to run the ball 20, 25 times a game, even in a spread offense. You're going to sit there and hand the ball to that running back quite a few times. Can that guy produce at the top level? And all of these guys that we're talking about here, all of them, do have that nice little stat line for me, but his is pretty special. And I look at this, and he averaged almost 6 yards a carry. He also can catch the ball out of the backfield, which I really like as well. So he's going to be able to stay on the field for all 3 downs.
And that's kind of what you want to find that rare back who's a 3-down back. If they can be on the field all three downs, even though it's very rare these days, it does give you that flexibility and shows the guy's ability to play in multiple situations. Because you think if you're not a first or second round pick in the NFL, you're probably playing special teams. You've got to show some athletic ability to get down the field and cover kicks or return kicks and those sort of things as well, not just being a running back per se.
So let's go back to some of these teams here in the top part of the draft here. Let's talk about New York, and let's talk about Giants and Jets. Both have 2 picks in the top 10.
Okay, so best case scenario for the Jets, being that 4th pick, I think Kyle Hamilton at number 4 and Derek Stingley at 9. The way the league is right now, they need to build a defense. Robert Saleh has some pass rushers there, and you can find pass rushers across the board, but you can't find a shutdown corner, and you can't find a game-changing safety who can drop into the box and really impact the passing game. It's a passing league. You're already facing Josh Allen 2 times a year. You're already going to be facing Tua 2 times a year now with Tyreek Hill and Waddle down there. You've got to find someone to cover the secondary. And then you look up in New England, it's Mac Jones, but still they're going to be able to find a throw the football. And even look, they have to play if they made the playoffs. You're going to have to go out to the AFC West at some point and play the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Raiders, or the Broncos. You've got to have guys in the secondary who can lock up with big receivers, and also be the other chess piece against that quarterback. I think the two of them would be a solidifying effort for Robert Saleh's defense and the Jets, and give chances to Zach Wilson and the offense to develop. And also, by having better corners, you do create a little more of a comfort level for pass rush. They know they have guys back there, or you can scheme wise. Well, you know what? We're going to put Stingley by himself. We're going to put you on an island, and we're going to use Hamilton to move around the field. You can develop a defense behind those two elite players in that defense.
I don't know if Jet fans would be very happy with you going defense in both of those picks. You really would take both of those guys instead of giving Zach Wilson a weapon.
If we're looking at best available and a Drake London or a Garrett Wilson's gone, where the receiver depth in this draft, you might be able to get a player like a George Pickens or a Dotson or a Christian Watson in the second round. If you have two elite defenders, do you want to build a defense that shuts everybody down? I would go both defense in that situation just to solidify if both Stingley was there. If Stingley's gone, then I'm going Drake London or Garrett Wilson.
So I'll take whoever there at the 4. I agree with you in the defensive backfield at 4 for the Jets. Take a defender, take either the lockdown corner. If Hamilton's there, we all know how I feel about Kyle Hamilton. I think he's the best player in the draft. I really do. And I get safety's been devalued. I still think he's the best player in this draft. At 10, that's where I go. The Jets got to take a guy who can catch a pass. They got to take a guy who can catch a pass. They have to take Drake London. They have to take Garrett Wilson. Even Olave, one of those guys. Heck, I would be okay with Treylon Burke if I was a Jet fan. All 4 of those guys are an elite level wide receiver. The Jets offense was not good. And yeah, you want to play defense and you want to stop Josh Allen and you want to stop Tua and you want to stop, Mac Jones. You can stop them all you want. You don't put the ball in the end zone, you ain't going to win. So I got it. I get it. I'll agree with you on taking a defensive back with that 4 pick. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could do 2 defensive backs and then have my fan base be okay with that. I think that they would be because I feel bad for Jets fans at the draft. Like their team never does anything good for them.
Hey, there's one year they took DeBrickshaw Ferguson, and then who was the offensive lineman from Ohio State? The center?
Nick Mangold.
Yeah, Nick Mangold. They doubled up on the offensive line. But I think I think your idea is the safer pick. I don't think Stingley will be there at 10 anyway. I think someone else will grab him. It just would be very intriguing. It'd be very intriguing to have 2 players on the defense to sort of solidify. But the receiver is definitely a need for the Jets because, Davis last year, the big free agent they brought in from Tennessee, he didn't do anything. Jamison Crowder is not a number 1 guy. And then they drafted Elijah Moore last year out of Ole Miss, and he really didn't do anything in the first half of the season. So, yeah, they have a running back. They drafted a decent running back last year, but they need some help at the receiver position. So you're probably going to end up going with the receiver, but it would be intriguing to grab 2 defensive backs and load up that defense.
So now let's go to the Giants, 5 and 7.
So
what's the
Giants,
best scenario for them?
They actually still have some returning receiver depth. I think they're okay there. Not worth a running back at the spot. The one thing they do have struggled with is protecting Daniel Jones. Eric Flowers was just released. He's been gone for a while. They still have Anthony Thomas at one of the tackle spots. I think if you're seeing an Evan Neal there or Ekwonu at tackle or Charles Cross, it's very intriguing to have your 2 bookend tackles and really try to solidify that position, protect your quarterback, give him some time. I think that's where you use one of those at. The other pick, which is 2 away, this is where you do what the Giants do best, and you find pass rushers. If a Thibodeau falls down the board or a Trey Walker is there, those are perfect spots where you can pick one of them and get after the quarterback. The Giants, like we talked about the Super Bowl run, they loaded up 5 deep at defensive linemen, maybe 6 deep, Strahan, Tuck, etc. And their entire focus was getting after Tom Brady, getting after Aaron Rodgers, getting after Brett Favre, the years before that, and beating those teams that had quarterbacks and pushing themselves through defensively to the Super Bowl. if Thibodeau falls, which he might be, you have a player there you can't pass up from an athlete perspective. Trey Walker, there's rumors the Jaguars even want him at number 1. I'm a Georgia fan. I don't think he's number 1 overall player, but he has very talented, definitely a top 10, top 12 pick. He can bring that speed rush to that team. If Aiden Hutchinson was not picked at number 1 and he somehow falls down, then the Giants, you're sitting there, you're like, at 5, we got to take him. They are going to be in a nice situation. I don't think they go defensive back. I don't think they go wide receiver. I think they look at offensive lineman to help protect Daniel Jones and a pass rusher to help get after the quarterback. This actually, Daniel Jones might be the end of his career as a Giant if he doesn't really step up and produce this year. So don't be shocked if even the Giants look at a quarterback spot, not in those first 2 picks, but maybe in the second round, in addition, because he hasn't really shown much at all.
So they got to figure out Daniel Jones. That's my thing. They have to know whether or not Daniel Jones is going to be the guy or is he not the guy. And you look at this, I would take an offensive lineman. I'm with you. I'd take an offensive lineman at 5. I think 8 becomes the trading spot, actually. Or 7, I'm sorry. Atlanta's at 8. 7 to me is, does New York move that pick for more picks? Do they pick up an additional first-round pick for next year's draft? Or do they select a weapon for Daniel Jones? Do they take a pass rusher? Do they take the other defensive back, whoever is available there? Because I think that they're going to have their choice of one of those defensive backs at 5, and maybe they sit there and go, we have 3 offensive linemen we like, and let's take one of them. And I also think one of the biggest advantages the Giants have in this scenario, like the Jets don't have this advantage. I don't think the Giants care what Carolina does. Like, I legitimately think that they do not care, because they'll take whoever they want. They could have like a couple of guys on their board. They take the guy at 5, whoever that may be, whether that's, okay, let's say it's Evan Neal, offensive tackle. They could be looking at Carolina going, who are you taking? Go ahead, pick whoever. Oh, you're going to trade. Even if they traded that pick, you're still not going to probably get the guy I want. So I think the Giants are probably in the best situation. I think at the end of this draft, I hate to say it because, we are saying winners and losers off of what we saw them do in college and what we think that they're going to do. But, man, I think the Giants and Jets, if you don't come out as a winner out of this draft, you did something wrong.
I totally agree with you. Like, this is a make or break draft for the Giants and the Jets. Just because you look at the rest of the way the conference, especially in the AFC, where if the Jets don't hit it here, they're getting the distance and the gap between the teams that are contending is growing larger and larger. And the Jets are never going to get out of that foxhole. They're going to be sitting there in the dirt the entire time, just kicking dust. The Giants have a chance because there's turmoil in Dallas. Even though Dallas has talented players, there's turmoil there. Is Mike McCarthy the answer? Is Zeke done? Is Dak the quarterback? They released all their offensive linemen. What is that team going to do? Obviously, they traded Amari Cooper. Where is that team going? Look at the Commanders. What do they have going on? You have Carson Wentz there. You have a pretty decent defense. Terry McLaurin's now threatened to sit out, work, and hold out, and he wants a new deal, and he's the only offense they have. Then you look at the Eagles. Eagles have Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Is he the guy? They took Devonta Smith. They have Jalen Reagor a couple of years ago. They spent some first-round, picks on wide receivers. They always play ferocious. They have some fiery players, but now they have 2 mid-first-round picks. What do? Do they find a way to supplant that team and make the next jump? The East has always been up for grabs every single year. If you're the Giants, you have a chance of really building a franchise and making a big splash here, especially with Brian Daboll as your new head coach, or you sort of just tread in mediocrity. So it's a big turning point for the 2 of them. Which of these next 3 teams has the biggest, opportunity to take advantage of? Is it the Saints, the Eagles, or the Texans? All 3 of them have 2 first-round picks. Which one of those really has a chance to change their course of their franchise with this draft because of this pick?
I'm going to eliminate the Texans right off the jump because they need too much. They just need way too much. And they're not going to be even if they knock both of their picks out of the park, like let's say they wind up with two players that we absolutely love. I don't know who, but let's say that they do that. I'm still going to say, but you need this, this, and this. Plus, they got to run through Tennessee. Plus, they got to run through Indianapolis. I can't see them coming out of the draft better to beat those two teams. New Orleans is interesting because I don't feel like Carolina's going to be any good, and I don't feel like Atlanta's going to be any good. Tampa's going to be good. They're going to be a Super Bowl contender. But we saw what happened to them in the second round of the playoffs last year. You could build and then make a big trade or something next year and pick up a first round, one of the elite level young quarterbacks, or, there's going to be a veteran out of their job. Is that a team that maybe pulls off a trade for Jimmy G? That would be a shocker to me. I don't see them doing it, but Jimmy G would be an upgrade over the other two guys for sure for me. The other one, Philadelphia, is probably the best. I think Philadelphia would be my winner out of this, depending on what they do, because, yes, Tampa won that game. Philadelphia made the playoffs, but Tampa won that first-round game. I didn't think they won that game because of – I think they just need a couple extra pieces. I think Philadelphia could really challenge Dallas for the top of the NFC East right there. I really think that they could. I still think Dallas is a better team overall. I think that they have a little bit more than Philadelphia does. Again, if Philadelphia knocks out those two picks, I think that they could come out there. They got to get another receiver. They got to get someone for Jalen Hurts. I know Kelsey's coming back. I wouldn't mind seeing them pick up Tyler Lindenbaum from Iowa, the center there. You get one more year out of Kelsey, but now you could get probably maybe one of the better center prospects we've seen in a while. You could work on that defense too. Let's say one of those defensive backs falls. Let's say one of these defensive ends falls. Shoot, I could even go over, I have a hard time thinking that he will fall, but let's say, for an example, a guy like Devin Lloyd out of Utah. Let's say Devin Lloyd's sitting there staring at the face. Devin Lloyd's a tackling machine. He was basically all of the Utah defense. I know that they were good in other areas, but I like a guy like that for the Eagles and maybe shore up that defense. But I think Philadelphia probably has the opportunity to be the best team out of this draft out of those three that you gave me, with New Orleans a very, very close second, depending on who each team got. Yeah, but I would lean to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think I would too. The Lindenbaum was actually a sneaky little pick there. Great job on that one because, the Kelsey, he came back for that one deal, that 1 year, and he wants to, be an Eagle forever. But bringing in Lindenbaum, letting him get in there, get situated, maybe moving, him playing guard for a year. If you're interior lineman, you can probably have to rotate yourself anyway at some point throughout your career. So you have a chance to play in guard a little bit, get yourself assimilated, let Kelsey run at center, solidify the offensive line, and build for the future. And then on defense, whether it's looking at a Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, anyone off the edge that might be there, an edge pass rusher, or even Lloyd or an Kobe Dean, someone else put a little leadership and a little stout in that defense would be a huge uplift to that defense, because that defense at times was abysmal for the Eagles, and then at times they played great. Even on the playoff game, early on they were competing with the Bucs, and then the Bucs just steamrolled them in the second half, and in the second quarter. So you need somebody who's going to put a stop down there and actually lock it in, and having a chance to really solidify the offensive line and give yourself another added depth on defense would be a nice boost to a team that I think has some pieces. I think another year with Jalen Hurts at quarterback, learning the system, truly being entrenched as a starter. You give Devonta Smith another year to truly learn how to be an NFL receiver. He showed glimpses last year, had a lot of great plays, and some times he was lost, but you have a chance to really develop there. You start building that rapport, and then finding pieces across the way to help build that roster, I think would be pretty good for the Eagles. I agree. even if the Texans came away with a Jameson Williams and an Evan Neal, two Alabama studs, that team is still 2 years away from contending. I mean, it would be interesting for the Davis Mills, our quarterback, to have a Cooks and a Williams and a receiver, but they're very similar kind of guys. But they are explosive. It would make you think about something. I don't think it's going to help them win this year, but it would at least make them intriguing for the future. And then the Saints. One thing I think we're kind of forgetting about, though, is the whole Alvin Kamara thing during the Pro Bowl. Does he get suspended? Does he have to sit out some time? Does that really hurt your chances of winning? And do you kind of look at how do we build just the depth and look, let's look at 2023 and not 2022 if our stud offensive player is out for 6 to 7 games. James Winston is he's erratic as a quarterback. I think we all know that. Sean Payton's not there anymore. You know what we're going to get from him. Michael Thomas has been injured the past years. You have no idea what we're going to get from him. So the Saints are kind of thinking in the middle where they can really go all in and actually make a run and be competitive, or use it as a way to really just cut back and reorganize the franchise and move forward. But I think the Eagles have all the best situation.
All right, Fresh. So let's do one for one of our Twitter followers out there that really has helped, our Twitter account and really interacted with us a lot. Our buddy Spoon of Zeke over there has got a great YouTube channel. If you're definitely looking at building your influence over there on Twitter, he's a giant Dallas Cowboys fan. What do you see the boys doing? What do you see for them to kind of move on? They had that heartbreaking playoff loss, and we've talked about, is Mike McCarthy the answer there? And maybe is he really that much better than Jason Garrett? Sean Payton doesn't have a job.
I think next year Sean Payton will be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Not 2022, but in 2023. I've talked with a buddy of ours about this. He's a big Cowboys fan as well. This is a Cowboys throwaway season. If they win, they win. If they don't, Jerry Jones doesn't really care because he knows it gives him another reason to get rid of McCarthy and then go get Sean Payton next year. You haven't seen, ever since Zeke signed that contract, you've seen it banged up. You haven't seen him play a full-on season. Now, is it because before he got the contract, he was overused and his kind of body's worn out? Or he's just lost a step? I don't know where we get from that. Tony, Pollard ran really well for them last year, gave him a nice little 1-2 punch. CeeDee Lamb, I think we're still waiting for him to take over and be that stud. You wear the 88, and wearing the 88 in Dallas, that's legendary. Drew Pearson, Michael Irvin, you got to wear that with pride. You've got to show up. And I haven't seen him consistently go out there and give me 100 yards and a touchdown. He's not feared like the other two guys were feared. And I think that's where you need to get him going. When it comes to the draft, that offensive line lost a lot of players. They released Lionel Collins, released a couple other guys. They used to be one of the best offensive lines in football. Now there's a lot of holes there. Defensively, you have Micah Parsons, who really was at linebacker at the beginning of the year and didn't really start taking off until they moved him to end. They said, hey, we're keeping him at linebacker. We're not making him defensive end. You have Van Der Esch there. You've released Jalen Smith. I think your secondary is in a good spot right now, and I don't think you're getting one of the elite guys at 23 or 24. I don't think you're getting one of the elite defenders from the secondary position there. You have Trey Diggs, who's a good player. To build this defense or this offense, you've got to look at the line. So either that's finding yourself an offensive lineman, whether it's a guard or a tackle, and solidifying and building for the future, not for this year exactly, but really looking forward as well. Or defensively, you don't have a tackle that really makes an impact on the game. They're getting free releases on your linebackers. Van Der Esch is not having much of an impact. Micah Parsons wasn't having as much of an impact at linebacker per se compared to when he was at the end because they were allowing the offensive line to get to the second level. If a Jordan Davis or Devontae Wyatt are there, those are two solid players that they could choose from to give yourself an anchor in the middle of the defensive line. Thinking of that kind of along the lines for the Cowboys of rebuild the trenches. In baseball and football, you kind of look, even in hockey, you build your team inside out. You build yourself line, defensive line, tackle, linebacker, safety, offense, center, quarterback, and you sort of go from there. I think Cowboys need to use this year, invest in one of your lines in the first-round pick, start building the trenches, and then look toward 2023 when you know when Sean Payton arrives and the Cowboys really turn it up.
I love the Jordan Davis pick there for them. I could very, very easily see Jordan Davis being like Nate Newton 2.0.
Yeah.
Actually, I think he'd be bigger than. I think he made it my 8 Nate Newton.
I mean, I was kind of intrigued, with that because it's the same kind of Jerry Jones wants that early '90s Cowboys.
Yeah. The other one, I would also agree with you going to the offensive line there. I could see maybe a guard like Kenyon Green out of A&M. He interests me if you're looking at a guy that has a lot of flexibility. I've said this before already. One of the guys I really like out of this draft, who I think is a sleeper, if I'm looking for offensive line help and I'm in the late first round, Sean Ryan out of UCLA, 6'5", 320, held his own against Thibodeau when UCLA played Oregon. If you go back, watch that tape, watch how he handled that battle between the two of them. I don't necessarily know if he translates to a tackle. He played tackle at UCLA this past year. And people forget UCLA, I think 5-6 weeks into the season, it was UCLA, Michigan, and Florida with the top 3 rushing attacks in the country. Sean Ryan was a big reason that was happening there. I'm a big fan of his. I definitely think that he has the flexibility to go guard, tackle. Heck, I don't know if you could teach him to play center. Going back to the kid from Iowa we talked about earlier, I think you're spot on, though, building the trenches for the Cowboys.
Yeah, there's one little thing that did intrigue me, though, because if you did move Parsons to end, or at least use him more of a flexibility stand-up, edge rusher, if Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean were there, do you add them to the mix at linebacker along with Van Der Esch and find another tackling machine? Obviously, the Jalen Smith experiment failed in a second after he got his contract. But Van Der Esch has been a nice player. Parsons has been obviously a really good player. Do you try to strike it rich at linebacker again and get guys? Because you look at in any of these teams in the NFL, you build your teams to win your own division and against the guys in your division first. The Commanders are running the football. Eagles are running the football. Giants are running the football. You need linebackers to run side to side and shut that down and also take out the tight end. That's where you build against your division first and then you expand out. So those would be another potential option there at the pick for the Cowboys.
All right, Fresh, you got anything else before we wrap this up?
I got one question for you. So we've all talked about the first round. There are 8 teams that do not have a first-round pick. Which one of those 8 teams sort of throws everything together and makes a mad dash into the first round? Is it the Bears, Colts, Browns, Niners, Broncos, Raiders, Dolphins, and Rams? Taking future first-round picks, whatever. Who puts together a package to jump into the first round and go get somebody?
Well, Browns don't have first-round picks to do that with. I don't know if the Rams do either, so I'd probably eliminate those two off jump. Although I think the Browns could get interesting. I don't think they're going to jump into the first. I wouldn't be shocked if maybe one of these wide receivers falls into the second, and they're looking at a guy maybe at like 35, 36. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Browns move up there, especially if it's maybe a guy like Treylon Burke falls. Maybe someone they don't fall in love with him like we think about him. Maybe a guy like a Dotson from Penn State or a Bell from Purdue, 2 guys that we're also high on. I could see some Browns moving up for someone like that. Rams coming off Super Bowl. I don't see them mortgaging because they're going to realize that this is their window's open now. So I don't know necessarily if you want to continue to mortgage your future. So who are my other teams? Indianapolis, Chicago, the 49ers.
Denver and Oakland and the Dolphins. Oh, Denver and Las Vegas. Sorry, apologies. RIP.
How many first round picks did Denver send for Russell?
I know they sent this year's and next year's for sure. I think even the one after that. So I think they've sent 3. I think they've depleted their arsenal. I'm
going to move them out of that role too. I'm going to put them with the Rams and the Browns there. So I'm not going to say them. At that point, you look at the team that is built to win now. I think, Chicago, they're going to need more help. I don't know if you mortgage future picks to jump up there, so I'll take Chicago out there. Indy is intriguing. Indy is really intriguing to me because they might look at that AFC South and see that it's wide open. And they know that they're already on paper better than Jacksonville and they're better than Houston. I don't care if Houston has 2 first round picks, you're not going to get better than Indianapolis in one draft. So then Indianapolis would be interesting to do, especially if they can move up and maybe get another weapon. Miami's interesting as well, but they've already traded a lot of their first round picks, so I don't necessarily know if I'm going to go with Miami. And then I'm missing one 49ers. 49ers. So I would be down to between Indianapolis and the 49ers. Or yeah, those two, because I see both of them looking at this draft going, we're a player or two away. And you sit there and say the 49ers, they won a playoff game. Indianapolis, like if it wasn't for Carson Wentz just completely peeing down his leg in Jacksonville, they make the playoffs too. So both of those are playoff teams. I would say both of them could see this as this is the one player that we are away, whether that's a wide receiver for both those teams, whether that's a offensive lineman, whether it's a defensive back or somebody that they really like. But they could also be saying, let's let the draft come to us. And the most valuable pick, if I'm holding on to a pick, the most valuable pick is Jacksonville at 33. You let the first round happen. You don't have to mortgage your future. You don't have to mortgage a boatload of picks to move into that first round. I'll sit there at 33, go, okay, I see this. I'm only going to get 4 years on this guy. I'm not going to get that 5th-year option. It's not going to cost me as much to move up, especially if I'm sitting in the 40s to move up to 33. It's not going to cost me a whole lot. And it allows me to take some time and re-look at the draft and say, these are the players available. This is the level that we have on one of these people.
Oh, and I think the Jags, that 33 pick, that actually is, I think, more gold to them from draft capital than the number 1 overall, because everything's going to reset. And that's the one interesting thing where in the past, you went straight into round 2 on a Saturday afternoon and just kept circulating. Now, when they moved to a Thursday and a Friday and a Saturday, that entire day, once that 32nd pick is locked in on Thursday night, you start looking at the board and you start analyzing. You have a full day to get field phone calls and sort of see where things are going. That becomes a major move. But I think the Colts are the ones with Jim Irsay, him being so fed up with losing. They have not won in Florida, not won in Jacksonville since the Obama administration. It's been forever. And it's cost them, I think, divisions. It's cost them playoff spots. It obviously cost them playoff spot this past year. He is going to do whatever he has to do. He's going to try to be irrational. He's going to try to be like us and make a crazy move. You look at the Stephon Gilmore move to sign them a couple days ago to go in and get Matt Ryan. He doesn't care about the future of draft picks at this point. He cares about winning now and winning the division. There's turmoil right now in Tennessee. A.J. Brown's want to hold out and not get a contract, blah, blah, blah. I think still Tennessee's very good. Jaguars and Texans probably aren't there yet. He knows that I've got to strike now before one of those two teams figures it out. I could see them making a bigger move than the 49ers do, because I think the 49ers are going to play a little more conservative. The Colts are going to be a little more aggressive. It's amazing, though, when you look at it, where the Rams gave up a lot of draft picks for players and went in win mode now with veteran players. And you start seeing, of those 8 teams that don't have a first-round pick, almost none of them truly have capital to make a move back into the first round. They've all vanquished multiple first-round, second-round picks over the next couple of years. They are basically just getting rid of them for veteran players or restructuring their team. So it's going to be tough to see them really put together a package to make a jump, up higher than 28. I think the Packers pick of 28 is the highest any of those teams might even get to, and that's even at a stretch.
Unless they start throwing in a player. We're starting to move into NBA-like drafts where, all right, I'll attach a second-round pick and then I'll attach this player on there as well. I know we don't do sign-in trades in the NFL, but you could sit there and send a pick and a player and maybe move up. But we'll see on that one. It's a good point. Like again, I think I'm looking at going Indianapolis makes the most sense because I think that AFC South is more wide open than the NFC West, but the NFC West isn't as it's tough. But Seattle's going to take a step back. I think there's more turmoil than the media is letting on in Arizona. I don't
No doubt.
necessarily know if Kyler Murray. And then you have the Rams who won the Super Bowl, but when was the last time we had someone repeat as Super Bowl champions? It hasn't happened in a while. So I'm looking at going if I'm sitting there in San Francisco, I go maybe I take a swing, maybe I take a different bite at this apple and see if I can do something with it.
Yeah, I think you made a great point there about Arizona being a lot of trouble there, and it's tough to repeat. But then the Rams themselves, they weren't dominant last year. They gutted it out, and it took a comeback effort to beat the Bucs in Tampa in the playoffs, and they were lucky that the Packers bleeped the bed versus the 49ers. And you sort of set yourself up at home for a championship game. And you had the home environment for basically the two biggest games, the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. And you didn't really have to go on the road. And you just knew we're going to use a bunch of veterans to make that push. How much does, X player have left in the tank? It's going to be interesting to see. I think the 49ers have that window, and that might be open. Really excited. We're about a week, 10 days away. And, can't wait for it to get here.
Thanks for listening to us. We are part of Spinnable Sports. The Irrational Confidence Podcast is part of Spinnable Sports. So make sure you go into spinnablesports.com. Yep, that is spinnablesports.com. Checking out all the information that is available there. Making sure that you follow us on Twitter. We are available. Make sure that you're interacting with us. We put out different questions. We make sure that all of our content is out there as well. And that you're liking and subscribing, whether it's here on YouTube or whether it is listening to Apple or Spotify or Stitcher or Good Pods or any pods or, I don't know, Amazon Pods, Google Pods. I'm sure there's more out there. I don't know. But make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from, leaving us that 5-star review, making sure you know that Fresh and I, we're 5-star prospects. So, Fresh, I'm excited for this draft. I really am. It's my favorite time of the year. Part of it's because I was a Browns fan for so long, and this was my Super Bowl for a very, very long time. I'm glad it's not my Super Bowl anymore. I really am.
It's usually not my Super Bowl, but I enjoy the chaos. And just, Haps, you're on the top of my draft board. Not number one, but you're definitely up the top.
Well, listen, as long as I make it into the top 5. We got to figure out what we're going to do for the draft, though. We got to figure something out. We're going to have to – I don't think we're going to be able to stay in and watch the draft.
No, we'll figure something out.
I know. All right, folks. You have a wonderful night.
Bye, y'all.